Hello. Hello, 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 hello. It is 7:35 p.m. on the evening of Thursday. Wow. Fast week, July 17th, 2025. Mark Kulak, Houstonic.live, and we're just going to have Led Zeppelin 1 playing in the background. Matter of fact, I may just do all... I could be playing Digital Underground and doing the Humpty Hump.
Come on, I do the Humpty Hump. Come on, I do the Humpty Hump. Check me out, y'all. I do the Humpty Hump. Just watch me do the Humpty Hump. Yeah, do you know what I'm doing the Humpty Hump?
For Humphries, but I'm just going to go with the Led Zeppelin album. I like having the album just play in the background. I don't have all of the content prepared for exactly how I want to present this material. So I'm just going to give you a high level, a little bit of a taste of what's coming here. So Suzanne Humphries, Dr. Suzanne Humphries is someone that I have to admit, I never knew she even existed until I saw her in a video with Brandy Vaughn, which we discovered together a few months ago. The account page, which is sometimes in the chat here, has done an absolutely fantastic... Hey, Catherine Organic, thank you for... I heard you sent something sweet to our mutual friend out in Pittsburgh. Thank you for that. That's really appreciated. Anything we can do to help him out is good. Yes, Led Zeppelin. So I never knew she existed. I say that because I think that perhaps to some people will highlight... I've not been in the arena of researching medical countermeasures, medical safety, immunization, healthy living. I really just haven't been in it. Even though one of the things that pulled me into doing online research was drug addiction. But that's not really... Dealing with addiction is, while certainly healthy living helps, they're usually compartmentalized, right? But in this case, also the issue with Lyme disease and chronic fatigue, that made me aware of some things. But I wasn't really in this for vaccine awareness. I had some questions about things, but anyway. So going into COVID, I didn't know who Suzanne Humphries was. I didn't know she wrote a book in 2011. And when I saw her in the video with Brandy Vaughn, she actually looked a little bit uncomfortable with Brandy Vaughn. Now, I interpreted that as Suzanne Humphries maybe didn't go to a lot of those type of events, and maybe she thought that Brandy Vaughn was looking up a little bit too much to her. I don't know. Come to find out, Suzanne Humphries actually had a book written in 2011 called Dissolving Illusions, which I've ordered. I ordered a copy of it yesterday. I ordered the 2011 version. It's 13. 2011, the original printing of it. There's been a reprint of Dissolving Illusions, which is available now. Go to eBay, find the old version. I felt a little pressure to get one ordered soon. So I probably could have bought one for $5. But there was one there that I was sure was a 2013 printing, and it was $25. So I'm like, let's just order it right now, get it in the mail. So Suzanne Humphries suddenly was on the Joe Rogan show not too long ago, just like a week or two ago. She's had years to be on the Joe Rogan show, but now she's on the Joe Rogan show. Well, is that a coincidence? Is it possible that her recent appearance on the Joe Rogan show was necessary, was encouraged, because a big part of her book, the Dissolving Illusions book, is talking about the history of not just vaccines in general, but polio, smallpox, the polio outbreaks, the polio vaccine, etc. I've never read the book, but based upon a couple of the clips that I saw, I believe that she might be misdirecting some people with that book. Jonathan Cooey did a good job showing some clips of the Suzanne Humphries interview on the Joe Rogan show. And in that interview, she gave a very long-winded answer about, is there ever been a safe vaccine? And she says, well, wait a second. I have to step back and we need to talk about polio, and that's fine. Sometimes things aren't simple answers. That's not the problem. But as she gave the answer, I felt as though I really wasn't getting any answer at all. The reason why it is curious to us that she was on that the Joe Rogan show, where she will get a lot of visibility, and that book is being pushed heavily right now. I think that the topic of our research here, especially in this 283 series, about the risk of intramuscular injecting things into the muscles of a human being for the purposes of modifying the immune system, augmenting the immune system, health, etc., injecting intramuscularly a complex combination of substances or biological material is a horrible idea. And much of what is being debated regarding vaccine safety is really just a heated debate about the impact of injecting things into a muscle. Why do we think that something injected into a muscle isn't a big deal? If someone were to suggest injecting a serum or a vaccine into the heart, people go, oh, that's not a good idea. If we thought about injecting it into the spleen, that's a terrible idea. Why would you inject something into that? Why would you vaccinate into the brain? You think about all the other organs. I'm not going to list them all. There's a lot of organs, okay? A lot of organs. But for some reason, we think the muscle's no big deal. Well, what is the muscle? It's still part of the body. It's still inside the body. We just take why? Because we eat hamburgers and steaks, and we've cleaned fish and eaten fish before. We just think that the muscle is just a big pile of protein, that it's a safe place. Why do we just assume that injecting something into a muscle is no biggie, but all the other organs are off limits? It's really a stupid thing to just assume, but we make that assumption. And what is interpreted as the polio outbreak and the increase of child paralysis throughout the late 1800s and early 1900s, United States and probably other countries, is basically an increase in the frequency of using hypodermic needles to inject things into muscles. There it is. You could not use a hypodermic needle to inject something into a muscle before 1880. And you know what? Before 1880, you'll find almost no child paralysis. It happened from time to time. It's possible that someone could cut way too deep, or a smallpox vaccine, or there could be other contaminations. I mean, we're not saying it didn't happen, but there was no polio epidemics. There were none. That coincides with intramuscular injection. Intramuscular injection. And the more stuff that was being injected in, the more paralysis children had. There's polio. So the Suzanne Humphries video, and I'll show you a video clip from the Joe Rogan show, she's not questioning polio as a virus at all. In fact, she even goes on to suggest that polio was a gain-of-function virus leaked out of the Rockefeller laboratory in New York City. Wow. So the questioning of the method of vaccination, intramuscular injection, hypodermic syringe, is a concept which is going to change the world for a billion or billions of people. This is definitely the scariest thing I've ever spoken about. I understand how grave the consequences are for me. I know how Jay is aware how serious they are for them. This is as serious a thing. This is more serious than anything we've ever spoken of before. And I'm totally a believer in it right now. What Jay said yesterday was incredibly brave. It is very possible that the smallpox vaccine provided some protection in some instances. As a matter of fact, you can probably see evidence in your everyday life of your body's immunity at the layer of the skin adapting to the environment. I remember of an example where when I was teenager, early 20s, going to my heavy metal concerts, death metal concerts, and I would go into the mosh pit. Everyone just throws their bodies against each other and comes out bruised and bleeding or whatever. And I remember doing that, and I remember having not the bruises, but I remember the pimples. I actually remember how my skin broke out all over the place, and I kind of got sick. And I think it was from the exposure of all of those other people. Why? Because they're foreign. However, when you're in a long-term relationship with someone, that doesn't happen. There's actually synchronization of the people who you live with, who you marry, who you reside with, who you're on a shared mission with, and based upon your cohabitation. Your body has abilities to adapt. And it's possible that if someone is working in an occupation where their skin is continuously being exposed to the skin cells of, for example, cows, that maybe the rubbing in of foreign skin cells can create some level of familiarity with the skin. It's possible, but that was done at the skin level. It was not done as an intramuscular injection. It's a very brave thing that John said, and I think he's right. I think there's a lot of nuances to it, and I'm sure Jonathan Cooey will be able to expand upon that and knock that one out of the park. But this reality that there is something to that, but it's complicated. It's also based upon complex biological material, or is it just a chemical? Because your body doesn't know how to build natural immunity to something that is acid. However, when it comes to a foreign protein, yeah, maybe your skin cells can find ways to adapt to it. Maybe there are notions of compatibility and so on and so forth. So, back to it. That is one type of vaccine application. However, all this new stuff that was coming down the pipe, late 1890s, 1900s, is all intramuscular injection. And the more that stuff is done, the more paralysis there is in babies. And it wasn't just vaccines. There was also this concept of treating babies with, or humans with serums. So in other words, they were thinking that they were extracting stuff from another person or a horse and processing it a little bit and injecting it and maybe providing immunity that way, right? Because they figured, well, you know what? If that works for the skin, it should work for the muscle. Of course, why would the muscle work like that? It was a bad idea. I don't think it was meant to be nefarious, but it was just a horrible idea. So as these things started to happen, there were more reactions. There were more childhood paralysis. Not to mention, did they know that they needed to dose children less? Did they know that? Were they giving them the same doses as adults? And what else was in there? Because these were not anywhere close to the level of quality control as a modern substance, which is being injected into someone's muscles. So, as the quantity of intramuscular injections went up, guess what? Polio went up. Now, what Susan Humphries talks about in the video short that I'll find in a minute and I'll show on the Joe Rogan show is 1916, there was the highest rate of deaths from polio in U.S. history. It was in 1916. Note, that's 2 years before the Spanish flu. Now, in 1917, the number of deaths from polio went down a lot. I wonder why. The possibilities is that there were changes being made in the way vaccines were being manufactured that correspond to that. I believe that it was talked about at higher levels of national security in the United States. Changes were made. Things were being experimented on. At the Rockefeller, maybe they were using monkeys instead of horses or chickens or something like that. They knew that they needed to make changes. So, child paralysis went down significantly in 1917. But 1917 is also the same year as our research on this channel and in this 283 series shows that the U.S. military developed a brand new type of vaccine in coordination with some research that came out of France called the lipo vaccine, where they took multiple types of viruses and whatever else they think. Someone wanted to be immune to a bacteria, so they would typhoid. All of this stuff wound up in there, and then they mixed it in with different types of oils, thinking that they could slow down the rate of absorption and therefore reduce the number of shots. Now, from a military standpoint, I could see how if you need to suddenly immunize 3 million soldiers, you don't want to have to deal with 4 to 8 shots for each of them. So you create a new type of vaccine. And you think, hey, maybe using the oil or something like that, we can slow down the rate of absorption. But I wonder, given the fact that this is a new type of technology, and it's being rolled out in the same year that the polio, the childhood paralysis, is going down. It makes me wonder. I wonder what changes were made in the childhood vaccines, because they didn't stop giving babies intramuscular injection in 1917. However, it's possible that some of their ideas that they had in 1917 regarding maybe ways to reduce childhood paralysis from intramuscular injection probably led to the additional ideas that they had in the developments or the modifications of vaccines which are being used for the U.S. military. And sure enough, 1918 and 1919, well, no more polio. Well, I shouldn't say no more, but a lot less polio. Hey, a lot less typhoid too. But bad news, 600,000 dead from pneumonia. Wow. Maybe the horrific nature of those vaccines, which gave everyone, of course, no one will say this, but if those vaccine changes in both adults and children led to pneumonia in 1918, 1919, though that would make sense. A bad idea which was pushed out urgently because of the terror of child paralysis that was happening in 1916. One bad idea led to a change. They tested it on some monkeys. It was cool. They tried it on some humans. Not so bad. Pushed it out hard. And then they had the 1918 influenza. It makes sense. Chronologically, it fits like the O.J. Simpson glove. Actually, he really had to work on that glove. I don't know. I don't know if that was all a show. I mean, he did do some acting. But this is all explained without any virus running around. And in fact, as I will show, not tonight, because I'm still collecting the evidence, but it's all out there, you will see that they did not know the source of the polio. All they knew is that it was something they couldn't see under a microscope. They couldn't see it. So they assumed it was a super tiny organism. And they couldn't understand the epidemiology either. It wasn't going from person to person. It wasn't even going baby to baby. So they assumed that it required contact, but there were asymptomatic carriers. They assumed that because in reality, what was really happening was children were getting injured in hospital visits. And that started in the late 1800s, and it kept happening more and more and more. The epidemiology is they went to a doctor, or a doctor came to visit them, caused an injury from intramuscular injection. There's polio. And all of that panic led to urgent vaccine changes, and now you have the 1918 Spanish flu. You don't need a virus. Oh, and before that, though, they thought, well, maybe it's from flies. Maybe it's from moths. Maybe it's from, I saw sanitation thrown out there. I saw food thrown out there. All kinds of organisms. They tried everything. And I think Simon Flexner at the Rockefeller Institute knew, you know what? This is because of the injections. And that is also why the person that created that lipo vaccine in 1917 that went into the military in 1918. And 1918, by the way, the population in the United States that had the most deaths from that influenza was the population that got the most shots. 100% correlation. Now, they didn't die right afterwards, probably because when they were injecting that shit ton of germs in castor oil and sperm oil and seed oil and who knows what else, petroleum, we don't know. It probably really did create a pocket of horror, of nightmares that stuck in people's arms. Meaning those germs might have stayed in there for a few days, a few hours, 2 months? Who knows? We don't know. But they decided to stop doing those lipo vaccines where they combined everything and added it in oil. They stopped doing that. The United States, all nations did in 1919, almost as if they knew it didn't work out. Actually, they stopped in 1920. There was still some kicking around in 1919. And that makes sense because there still were surges of that influenza in 1919. The spikes in influenza, like, for example, in September and October, correlate not to the cold season when people supposedly are all inside sharing germs, but actually the point of the season which people are more likely to receive an influenza injection. No virus is required to explain this. Now, maybe there is a polio virus running around doing something or other. I don't know. However, most of it, I firmly believe, will be explained by nothing more than a lot of bad ideas, which led to more bad ideas about how to create and administer vaccines via intramuscular injection. There's your polio outbreak. There's your 1918 flu. There's your desire to pivot to flu mist vaccines in 1922 and 1923. No gain of function required. No lab leak required. Just a bunch of well-meaning doctors making a lot of freaking awful decisions that paralyzed and killed a lot of people in the process. And as a byproduct of that, a whole bunch of things were discovered about, holy cow, no pun intended, but this immune system does not work like we thought it did. Ideas, and within 20 years they had the double helix out of that. All of those ideas came from a series of bad ideas. Now, whether the discovery of DNA itself has led to anything good, that's up for debate. The debate we don't need to have. But Susan Humphries and the story Dissolving Illusions, I think the core of that is to reinforce polio is a virus and it was spreading and came out of a lab. Which means the Susan Humphries push, her being lifted and hoisted right now on Joe Rogan, corresponds to Dr. Jonathan Cooey, PhD, and Mark Kulak, ex-analyst of, Dell and NetApp and Datto and a couple of other companies, deciding to give it all to try to figure out what's going on. And we know it was a horrible idea. Intramuscular injection, it was dumb. It was fatally dumb. And it's still kind of dumb. It's still dumb. Why did they get all those monkeys to make new types of vaccines? Because I believe at the Rockefeller they thought, well, maybe monkeys are more biologically similar to humans and it was going to cause less reactions. By the way, Susan Humphries talks about polio going up in 1950. Polio cases went up. Polio deaths spiked in 1916. They probably changed the way polio cases were counted because they wanted polio cases to be a high number to justify the Salk polio vaccine in 1954 and 1955. And what was the core of that? An intramuscular injection of a vaccine to cure polio. How do you cure polio? Well, first off, no more intramuscular injection. That would be a great start. But the way to cure polio and still have intramuscular injection to be able to harness people for medical experimentation, they needed to create a type of vaccine that wouldn't cause paralysis in babies. That's your polio vaccine. The polio vaccine was not protection against a polio virus. It was an increased ability to still give babies intramuscular injections and not cause paralysis by not damaging them. That's the polio vaccine. And that's also why, as a backup to the Salk polio vaccine, they had the oral polio vaccine. They wanted to see the difference. They wanted to measure the difference. Intramuscular injection versus eating it. Because it was a curiosity. That is how damn important the intramuscular injection part is. The United States almost shut down for 5 years. We had marching bands spelling out "Salk" on the football field, even at halftime. Salk, Salk, Salk. There's Time Magazine. The whole nation, half the freaking Manhattan Project was dedicated to study of cancers and cancer vaccines. The United States, while they're telling everyone, hey, everyone, we're going to be able to drive a Jeep Wrangler on the moon, they just wanted to figure out a way to be able to continue to inject things into children and adults and not cause lethality or paralysis, because they need people accessible via intramuscular injection, because that is the gateway to be able to learn things on real human beings that you can't learn from lab animals. You need people to be lab animals without them knowing they are lab animals. And all of this is lost. All of this is lost when the whole book is about, the polio vaccine. And Simon Flexner, he just wanted to make a really, really lethal, scary polio vaccine. And that's why he got the monkeys. No, he got the monkeys because he was trying to figure out how to create a vaccine that wasn't going to paralyze babies via intramuscular injection. That's all. That's all it was. And here we are 110 years later, and people are still mystified about this stuff. That is the illusion. And I've begged people, look, if there is some greater good, to be gained from this, to keep my mouth shut, to, just to roll along, to go with it, tell me. Tell me what it is. I don't want to just spill the apple cart, for fame and whatever, and just to piss people off. Tell me what the greater good is. I'm a reasonable person. No one's been able to do it. So I keep going. So I'm going to play the Susan Humphries video. I have probably 200 articles already saved, and I have a whole lot more coming. There's so many. And if I write a book on it, which I might, either alone or possibly with someone else, and I think you can guess who that amazing person might be, the book may be nothing more than pictures of newspaper articles. Because if you just read the newspaper articles in chronological order, the story is told for you. I'm simply extrapolating more or less exactly what those newspaper articles say in order. That's it. I don't need to make up anything. Here's my book. It's an index with pictures of articles, pictures of evidence of history in chronological order, and it'll be pretty damn apparent. I don't need to retell the story. I don't need to say, well, this is what was really going on. They kind of just say it themselves. You'll be able to find newspaper articles where people were saying, look, I was fine until I went to the doctor and they gave me this injection. They gave me an injection. They gave me a vaccine. Now I got paralysis. The doctor would be like, oh, well, you were getting paralysis before the vaccine. The articles are right there. Tons of articles from 1898. My goodness, there's this crazy child paralysis going around. Seems to be starting in the major cities first, not happening in the rural areas. That's odd. Almost like where more the educated doctors are located. In it, they say it's a very weird paralysis. Perfectly healthy babies, young children running around, muscular thinking, and all of a sudden, they can't move. They're paralyzed. Sometimes they snap out of it. A lot of times they die. They were saying then that there's never been a paralysis like that before. Ever. So if there ever was anything in the past which caused health problems or some types of paralysis, some weird, insect bite, they all said at the time it was like nothing that has ever happened before. Golly gee, on the same years that they were increasing year over year the quantity of intramuscular injections into healthy babies, into healthy infants and healthy children. There's the story. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm an anti-injector. I don't know. it would actually require a few hours for me to walk through the individual articles to tell the story. But I'm still assembling them. I think I'm actually going to have to create several web pages to archive, and there's just so many details that just back it up. Point after point after point, everything I just said. I don't have to make anything up. I don't have to spin a story. You don't even need to read my words. Read someone else's words. It's all there. I think this was it here.
I'm not making this up either. 1916, Upper East Side, Manhattan. There was a Rockefeller lab. Their specific stated goal was to try to create the most pathological, neuropathological strain of polio possible. And they did that by taking monkey brains and human spinal serum and injecting it into monkeys. And there was a big problem with that, which was released into the public by accident. And the world experienced the worst polio epidemic on record, 25% mortality. That's unheard of. Really freaked the public out. You can see the epicenter as it fanned out. And as it fanned out and as time went on, never heard of it again. It attenuates as it moves through the body because it's a normal human commensal that goes back to its normal state when it's in a human. And that's generally what happens. If you have a highly lethal virus...
They do say that it only impacted humans, although it could jump to a monkey or something like that.
And it kills a lot of people. Those people are dead. They can't spread anything. Polio was only made more lethal by the stupid things that humans did around it.
So this is the thing. They couldn't understand the epidemiology. How is it getting from that child to that child? Sometimes, interesting, one family would have 3 children all get polio at the same time. Now, maybe it's because it's spreading in the house, or maybe they took their 3 children to the doctor on the same day, which is probably more likely. So they came up with a cockamamie idea that there was asymptomatic spread. And they probably actually thought that in 1916. I think Simon Flexner and a few other people knew, you know what, guys, I think this might be the needle, but I'm not sure. So no virus required. Let's go back to the beginning. Oh, by the way, some of the videos she's showing in here were propaganda videos from the early 1950s. You know, where they actually had like whole airplane hangars full of iron lungs and happy kids getting fed sandwiches by nurses. Those are psyop pictures. That wasn't reality. You think a kid who's going to have to grow up in a can is going to be happy that he's getting a sandwich? Can't use his arms or legs for anything? Just sitting on a bed in the middle of an airplane hangar day after day? Come on. Totally staged photos.
I'm not making this up either. 1916.
Not making it up. She's totally making it up.
Upper East Side, Manhattan. There was a Rockefeller lab. Their specific stated goal was to try to create the most pathological, neuropathological strain of polio possible.
That is an absolute lie. I have the newspaper articles. I have the white papers. Their goal was to try to understand why child paralysis was going up so much every year. I'm sure that there's plenty of scientists out there who have bad ideas, who think too much of themselves, who probably think other people may not be worthy of living on Earth. I'm sure there is. But take a step back, okay? It's kind of hard when you really think about it to just assume that there were just a bunch of evil sons of bitches who lived at the Rockefeller who just woke up every day all super excited to make something that was going to kill everybody. That is so stupid. Just say it. Stupid. That is such a stupid thing to even propose. Really? Really? And they were going to kill all themselves. Really? That's what she says. And Joe Rogan's like, whoa, amazing. Whoa, tell me some more truth. Are you serious? Or, as it is abundantly well and extremely clearly documented, Flexner and the Rockefeller were like, why is there so much child paralysis? I don't think they knew. They were like, why is it going up? I believe they actually did think it was a pathogen at first. However, as Simon Flexner and a few others did more tests throughout 1915 and 16 on transmissibility of polio, I think at one point one of them said, you know, okay, so sometimes we're seeing if the polio goes from here, this animal to that animal, but all we might be doing is causing an injury with a needle. Because when we use the placebo, we're not actually injecting anything. I think some of them thought about it, which is why they rushed out and started getting all the monkeys. They weren't trying to make a weaponized virus. They were trying to figure out how to make a vaccine that wasn't going to cause paralysis. And I believe they actually thought that if you can use an animal that is visually anyways closer to a human, maybe the odds of that happening, of not causing paralysis, would be improved. I believe that's what they were doing. They just wanted a neuropathological. Oh my God, that's so stupid. So stupid. So stupid. I'm telling you what, people in this world of alternative media, conspiracy research, whatever, I swear, are their own worst enemies. Every time someone has rainy basement, holy shit, they're seeding the clouds again. You know, a bridge gets a little wobbly. Oh my goodness, it must be the 5G impacting the water. Oh boy, you know, hot weather. Oh no, it's the cloud seeding combined with the 5G and the neurotransmitters. It's the government trying to control everybody. They just want to kill everyone. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to say we, but this community, not you watch my channel, we're cool, is its own worst enemy. The bullshit that Suzanne Humphries is saying right here is more damning to us than anything Anthony Fauci ever said or did. Anthony Fauci is the neighbor that every once in a while shoots an arrow at your house. Susan Humphries is the bitch that's in your house that's actually wielding a knife right in front of you at your family while saying that she's on your side. And I'm sorry to use tough words. People die because people take money to lie about why people die. Susan Humphries takes money to lie about why people die. And because of that, more people die. She is complicit in murder by telling this type of bullshit in a book and on a video with Joe Rogan. She is complicit in murder for saying this type of shit. When in reality, this video here, Jonathan Cooey's videos, should be getting 50, 90,000 views a video. Easy. Easy. There's people who started channels 3 years after me. They don't do shit, and they have 700,000 subscribers. Are you kidding me? She takes money to lie about why people die, which in turn kills people. These doctors, these neuropathological strain possible. No, it was an intramuscular injection injury. You horrible lying woman, who, by the way, won't even acknowledge that Brandy Vaughn said it right. Her silence on Brandy Vaughn is complicity in the murder, the assassination of Brandy Vaughn herself. Children's Health Defense is built upon the fact that several people were assassinated. They were assassinated to make CHD and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. possible. Someone that's willing to assassinate several other people to be your friend is not someone that you should ever trust. So let's play this video one more time and then I'm done for today. Let's get the Zeppelin going on in the background again.
1916, Upper East Side, Manhattan, there was a Rockefeller lab. Their specific stated goal was to try to create the most pathological, neuropathological strain of polio possible. And they did that by taking monkey brains and human spinal serum and injecting it into monkeys. And there was a big problem with that, which was released into the public by accident. And the world experienced the worst polio epidemic on record, 25% mortality. That's unheard of.
You know why the monkeys got injured? You know why the monkeys got sick? Because monkeys can get sick and get paralysis from intramuscular injection too. Matter of fact, I'll bet you if I grabbed a fistful of garden soil and injected it into the muscle of a monkey, it would probably get paralyzed. Do I just assume that my gardens have polio virus in it? See how easy that is to confuse these two things? And that video, that picture there is 1950. Guys, hang in there. Give me another 2 or 3 days. I'm going to get these pictures together. It is absolutely explosive. We are going to absolutely destroy this book. Destroy it. And it needs to be destroyed. We must stop people from taking money to lie about why people die. Thank you. God bless.